Well, welcome to East Coast Podcast. We have our very special guest, the Pastor Murray Newman,
Thank you very much.
all the way from Avoca Beach.
Yes.
The very new senior pastor.
Very new.
Yes,
Like-
of like a week,
3 days.
3 days. How's it been?
Well, it's been good so far.
So far.
Like I don't know my church. It's all out there in cyberspace and
Yeah.
streaming. So it's an interesting journey for us. What great timing as to transitioning a church.
Perfect timing.
Only Murray Newman could do that now.
That's right. And your church is In Life Church.
In Life Church, yes.
I love it. And if for those who don't know Pastor Murray, we've known Pastor Murray for years.
Yes.
And years. Incredible prophetic ministry, life-giving ministry. Encounter Life Ministries is, you've had that going for how many years, travelling around?
Yeah. Nearly 4 years, nearly 5,
Yeah.
doing that, yeah.
Yeah, and particularly the last couple of years you've been going all over the world.
Yeah,
You're
it's
in
been
high
very
demand.
busy.
It's
Yeah.
been hard to lock you down.
Yeah.
But now the world's shut down, I could get you today,
yeah.
Murray.
Yeah, so all our travelling has been postponed for a while anyway. Well,
Yeah.
it's backing up towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's part of what I believe the future is for us. Anyway, in churches now, I always believed that that's what we were going to do. And I was always believing that Sunday was not going to be the focus for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's made me look good.
And it's true, we've felt that, and it's a temptation to really focus on Sunday. And you've known our background, which
Yes.
is really, Pastor Mark made a focus on small groups, and that has
Yes.
been a huge thing for us of our DNA at East Coast. And what I love about what you do, Murray, is discipleship.
Yes.
And that's really your DNA, is discipling people in faith context and even outside. Like, people may not know, but you'll go into workspaces, medical practices,
Yeah.
and they'll have you do team building, and it's discipleship, really.
It's discipleship.
Yeah.
You know, we've said it for a long time, you know, the gospel, the message never changed, but the tools and the method of doing that. And I think a lot of people, I always remember that the disciples were not believers when Jesus started working with them. They had a religious concept. They knew who God was, but they definitely didn't know who Jesus was. So when I go into corporate settings, that's what I go like, believing that these people are disciples. They're just not saved yet. So I bring them on the journey. And I don't disguise who I'm introduced as Pastor Muzz to them. And I'm yet to have pushback. In fact, all I get is buy-in, especially when you bring the real freedom and joy of what the life of Jesus brings.
Yeah.
So it's like, how's life working for you without Jesus? Because I'm going to demonstrate to you what life is like with him.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny that you say that about the disciples, because I just heard someone recently, they asked the question, when did they become Christians?
Yes.
You know, and everyone gives this different answer because we don't know that exact moment, and everybody's journey looks different. That discipleship journey of when they start to walk with Jesus, and that aha moment comes at different times for people.
Yeah. So I've long believed that, you know, Jesus said go. And so there's a big gap between where people are at, say, out of church to being in church, and now the building now no longer is the focal point. So now our neighbours, our families, we're now integrating with them. And discipleship, to me, is creating the journey for people to encounter Jesus, continue to encounter Jesus, and then showing others how to encounter Jesus.
Yeah.
As a lifestyle. And you'll have people. So I'm always discipling a new Christian, and then I disciple like senior pastors.
Yeah.
So I try to have in my world the whole journey, you know, so that, and trying to demonstrate that should be normal. Not that that's...
It's not just a Pastor Murray thing. And that's what we really, a lifestyle of discipleship, that's in Felix and my heart, is for the whole church. And
For
that,
the whole church.
you know, you're running a business, you have a lifestyle of discipleship, you're discipling your workers, you disciple those that are around you.
Yeah.
And I do think taking away Sunday gathering with this whole COVID thing has just, it's been good to just stretch people's thinking and to just, you can't rely on me going to church on a Sunday doesn't define my Christianity. And you've got to dig deep and figure out what does define, my walk with
what does
Jesus.
a Christian look like now in these seasons? So it's no longer they attend church. They actually, and you see it, pastors are saying everywhere, we are the church. Now, we've said that for years. It's not a building, it's the people. Well, now that's the case.
Yeah.
And I don't think the church will look the same after COVID-19.
Yeah.
Which is great. Because God is always up to something. God doesn't waste anything. Now, I'm not saying the suffering and the things that have happened to people losing work and all those, but we have to take advantage of that in a sense of there's different needs that have before, and now we have both the opportunity to help people that are suffering and also to go through the suffering ourselves in a different way, because there will be believers that have lost work, lost money, lost loved ones, and maybe are even sick themselves right now. So it's also a great opportunity for the church to actually get a rediscover, which is part of discipleship, of how to do suffering.
Yes. Which in the West we're not that great at.
We're not
good at. And even in Pentecostal streams, just really almost rejecting that, which it is a part of. Like, it is a part of a discipleship journey, isn't it? Is suffering.
It's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
And I think we've tried to present a Christianity that is problem-free.
Yeah.
But that's just not real. Like, even Jesus did not demonstrate or have the life of that. Paul doesn't demonstrate, give the example. Peter doesn't. None of them do. Moses doesn't. Old Testament, right the way through, there's always an issue. There's always a problem. There's always some sort of suffering in that. And we go into denial in that instead of saying, wow, this will actually, if I embrace this and see what the message is inside of this, what is God saying to me in this time? What is he trying to reveal something about himself to me that I would never see in that? And the problem is, we wouldn't pray or seek God if we didn't have problems or suffering.
Yes.
I'd like to say we would, but I'm yet to find. Sometimes the best person to pray for you is someone who's going through stuff. Not necessarily the person that is seemingly problem-free. Yeah. Because we think, they have such victory. It's actually the person that has faced many challenges and even has pain right now, because they will be pressing in.
I call it like a deep well, those seasons that I've been through. It's like that digging. It's the digging process, but it then just causes this stream of living water to come from that deep well. But I see the basis of the appeal of a problem-free life. I understand why people have seek that out, because it sounds better and it seems more appealing to avoid pain. But I know from all of my pain, that has been my greatest learning curves.
It's interesting. Yeah. Even that statement is a very interesting one. Both sides of that, because if you look at, we think heaven problem-free, but heaven had betrayal and rebellion and pride in it. So we think it's some sort of utopia, when actually there's still choice, there's still things like that going on in that realm. Yeah. So, but actually true character is actually, what do you do when things are tough? What do you do? That's the revealing of character. Yes. Anybody can do it easy. Jesus says it's easy to love people that love you. Yeah. But to love the unlovable and to even allow the unlovable to love you is another world, is another place you have to live from to do that.
Yeah, and I think in this season, it's not going to be the lack of problems in your own life. It's going to be how you live through that. That's going to be the witness, isn't it?
That's the witness.
That's the witness. Like, I even was thanking God as I was driving here this morning, because we had a rough morning with the kids and homeschooling and all of that pressure, and two parents trying to work full time. And then I said, thank God that I understand what these other families are facing. And I thank God for that level of pressure we are facing. Yeah. So that I can relate, and then just, show them faith and show them Jesus in amongst that, from that place of understanding.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, I almost, it drives me up the world of you have no idea. You know how people say that, you've got no idea, when actually I do. Yeah. And when you can actually say, woo, I do know what that's like to have pain, have loss, live through sickness, live through financial pressure, live through lack. It's like Paul says, I've learnt the secret. He doesn't know what the secret is because you've got to find that out yourself, how to live in plenty and how to live without. You have to, both of those are a test of your, not just your character, but your spirituality, your walk with God, your joy, all those sorts of things reveal. So it's a great time for the church now.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time for the world, but it's a great time for us to really step up and show the world that, amazing what our God, how he manifests his life in us in these sort of circumstances.
Yeah. And that's really, I guess, why I wanted you to come in and do this series of podcasts, is talk about that journey for ourselves individually, and just for you to speak into that process. And people at home perhaps things have come to the surface within themselves, in this space.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about identity as a part of one of the focuses that you do when discipling people. Do you want to jump into?
Yeah, because one of the biggest things that drives us, and it's a huge question, even in our society today, is who am I? Now, God was able, when Moses says, who are you? He says, I am. And we have to actually be able to say that. This is Muz. This is what I am like. This is, if I was to describe myself. Now, there's two different forms I want to look at this, because when you look at... we get orientated, if you like. I know where I am. So if I'm lost, I don't know where I am. The same as my identity gets confused if I don't know who I am. Mm. So I get my bearings from my surroundings. So I'm lost because I've lost my bearings. I don't know where I am. And unfortunately, until you get your bearings, you'll stay lost. So all of us have some sort of, which is, if you like, have an identity, but whether it's true or not is the big thing. So we'll identify, and often so people will identify with certain groups simply because, I can connect with that. I know how to fit into that. Mm. And because we have this, what literally drives our identity is the need to belong. Mm. So, and that can come in all sorts of different forms, according to, if you like, my temperament. So one of the ways, even when I disciple people, we put them through a test through, or a quiz, which I get from Abiding Life, Dr. Ray Andrews, amazing discipler, done over 20 years with him, and got amazing tools. Look him up, Abiding Life Ministries, get onto it. Now, I've used those tools. So one of those tools is a unique self-test.
I did that.
Yeah, you did. You've done the unique self-test. Amazing. Very simple test. And really what it does, it looks at the theology or the understanding of the triune man, the three parts of man, which is our body, our soul, and our spirit. And then again within those, our body has kind of three elements to it. We have our physical part of us, we have our senses, and we have our appetites. Okay? And then we have our soul, which is our mind, will, and our emotions. And then we have our spirit, which has intuition, conscience, and communion. Now, if you, not wanting to get too complicated, but if you were to look at it, our brain is the body part of our mind. So our brain is the mind of our body. So when it controls things, it's making sure my heart beats, I take breaths, and I do that automatically. Now, looking at my mind, if you like, is the brain of my soul. So it operates and is operating all the time, thinking. It is thinking all the time. And then if you look at my spirit, my conscience is the brain or the mind of my spirit. When Jesus was talking, they brought the woman caught in adultery, and then Jesus, they want him to judge her, and he says, he is without sin, cast the first stone. And the Bible says that they were convicted in their conscience. So at a deep level, they went, oh. not just their mind nor their brain, but at a deeper level, they were convicted and weren't able to throw the stones. So when I start to work with a person, we do that test, and the test has about 9,000 different variations, and it looks at our soul, which is kind of like our operating system. So am I more of a thinking person, like more mindful, so a thinker? Am I more willful, a doer, or am I more emotionally driven, which makes me a feeler?
I bet you can pick up I'm a thinker, can't you?
Oh, yeah, I'd say there's all sorts, yeah.
I'm a classic feeler.
Oh, my goodness, we could put
Yeah.
you in a glass box and take you around,
Yes.
which is very interesting with the social distancing for feelers.
It's rough.
You can't hug anyone. No one can hug you.
Yeah, I just hug the dog 24/7. Felix is sick of hugging me all the time.
Yeah, it's like a bottomless pit of hugs. But see, even for someone like you, it's interesting. So understanding that, okay, Lou, this is how you operate. You're a feeler. So acceptance is a huge driver within you.
Yeah.
Attention is a huge driver. Like, why do you wear, your clothes?
Leopard print.
Your what?
Leopard print.
Your
I'm wearing
leopard prints. Why is
for
the
those
leopard
that are
prints? Why don't
listening.
you just dress dowdy? Because no. You want to bring flavour and spice the world. So social interaction actually energises you. All those sorts of things. Now, you think when I'm born hardwired with that kind of a soul and then then orientated by different messages that you are given. So when you look at building, so you're particularly say a feeler's identity is driven by the need for acceptance, the need for attention, the need for social interaction, the need for see the world relationally. And so therefore, imagine in an early life, little Lou figures out what does she need to get attention. Now, it can take two ways. Either you be a naughty girl and you get lots of attention, or you be a good girl and you get lots of attention.
Was that a question?
Yeah, well, but that would be the question.
Well, that's right. And you do see it like as a young girl, I would say people pleasing then is a huge outcome of
Exactly.
that temperament. And then...
But for a different reason.
Yeah, and knowing that you have those needs. And I think doing this unique self helped me navigate those base reactions and why,
Yes.
and even when what really jumped out to me, I can't remember what blend I was under stress, but what it identified with how I behave under stress really helped me think, I feel like taking a nap or I'm feeling avoidant, so I'll want to like potter and do things to distract myself, procrastinate under stress. So now I'll sense myself doing it and think, am I doing this because I'm under stress and do I need to push through that? Or I'll do it to just give myself some space. It's helped me a lot understanding these things.
Even in your language you can hear it.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
almost self-disclose what your operating system is. And so in discipling people, it's like, Lou, you can't let your emotions rule you.
Yes.
Even though they're a great strength to you, they're a gift to you, but still you have to let the life of Jesus infiltrate that and go, you don't have to please people, In the message, Paul says this, it's amazing, he says, I thank the Lord that he has delivered me for the stifling environment of pleasing people. Because it stifles us.
It does.
And to live to people will kill our faith, but living to God increases it and actually makes us more useful, for whatever the better word, or more even appealing to people when we're not people-pleasing. It's the oxymoron. It shows you that the way the kingdom works is opposite to what...
Upside down kingdom.
It's upside down again.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that I don't love people, I don't care for people, but I don't live for people, I live for God.
That's right.
And that empowers me to do that. So when you look at how an identity is formed, is from those messages that I get given as I'm developing and finding out who I am, read through the grid of my temperament.
So if someone's listening at home, because obviously I've done it, but there's going to be lots of people that will be listening that would be not relating
Yes.
to the feeler. Is it something they can jump on and do themselves, or do you need someone who's been trained in the
Abiding lifestyle.
abiding
It
life?
would be.
Yeah.
I think you can get online and do some stuff, but there is a lot of people in a lot of churches that do understand this,
Yeah.
or I'm tentative to put my contacts
Do
out
you want to put your mobile number? Joking.
Yeah. But I'm sure that we could perhaps, or even while I say it, perhaps maybe put some stuff online for people to
and we can
contact.
dig a bit deeper, especially, if you're listening out there in the East Coast world, which some people from our church, I think understanding this, it just helps. It helps you
Oh my goodness.
in your leadership.
Marriage.
It's not, marriage, everything. And it's not a hindrance. Like, I'm not afraid of my temperament that can function as a weakness if I let it. But if I'm just aware of it and then I say, well, I'm not going to respond, obviously people-pleasing had to die running a church.
Yeah,
That had to
work.
die. That
Yeah.
dies. Yeah, but that's like a long time ago. I don't respond out of that. But I think you sense it creep up and you think, no.
Yeah, that's that whole self-aware. And there's the healthy part of being self-aware, but then there's the unhealthy part of being self-obsessed.
Yeah.
And you can't be that. You just need to be aware of what my drivers are so that I always say, when I'm discipling a person, I'm always want them to get full, because really what we would think as emotional needs, acceptance, attention, social interaction, if I put the Lord in top of that, who accepts Lou the most?
Jesus.
True. And do you have to do anything for him?
Nah.
No. Can you see all these? So it's getting a person, you have these needs. Now, you've gotten them met through all sorts of illegitimate ways. So discipling a person is showing that actually Jesus can meet overwhelmingly those spiritual needs is what
Yeah.
they really are. So when I take, say, I work with a company where no one is a believer and far from faith. The first time I met with these people, everybody had a hangover. And so that was a marketing company. So it was very funny. But as we started to speak and I talk about these emotional needs, that's how I introduce it, they're like, that's so true. That's exactly,
Yeah.
why I can see why I've built and how I operate. That's so true. But then they asked me the question, so how do you get them met? Well, okay, you've asked the question. I haven't forced this. Well, I can understand this, that I know that you have to, because of your temperament, you have to people please. You have to form some sort of behaviour to get acceptance. Either you misbehave or you over do it,
Yeah.
overachieve to get acceptance, or you have to go out all the time to get social interaction. But for me, I live from all those places, not to them. And that's the difference for the believer. So discipling people is saying you don't have to go out and get that.
Yeah.
You actually have a well inside of you, the life of Jesus. It's not out there, it's in here.
And I guess just jumping on the back of that, some people who are listening, perhaps you've lost your job. Think about all these identity factors in this space right now.
Yeah, not wanted, not valued,
You
not
can't
cared
socially interact, like all of these things that would essentially at times be filling our identity where we go. For some
Yes.
people, what I'm invited to, am I being out and about, or just that a lot of people finding their identity in their role and in their jobs,
for. Yes, exactly.
in their doing. That this exactly what you're talking about now, and if you're listening at home and you're feeling lost, it's probably, and perhaps believers as well, it's bringing to the surface you've not been finding your identity
Yes, exactly.
in Christ. Yeah.
Well, you'll find that the Lord organises life to disciple us so that we start to get our identity in Him, which is the big thing.
Yeah.
Paul talks about it. It's the great mystery, Christ in us, the hope of glory. So we have to start to really, that is either true or a complete fairy tale.
Yeah.
And it's true.
It is true.
It is true. So when I get my identity started to sort out and I go that, wow, okay, my soul works like this and I'm valued. And so then I start to build an identity that isn't built on, if you like, two extremes of trying to, because what we often do as an identity, we put on a success suit because we're so driven by needing to belong. And so we have what we call is like the desired impression. When I walk into a room, my desire is that people would think this of me, that I'm, successful, I'm spiritual, I'm relational, I'm attractive. There's all these things that we want, which are again driven by those needs. But so we have that, if you like, persona of having my act together. But then I have all these things where I've made mistakes, that I'm stupid, that I'm ugly, that I'm angry, that I'm all these other things, which is me at my worst.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, we have this, so who am I? Because that goes back to that whole yin and yang thing, which is a terrible way to live. Schizo. Because often what happens is there are some people in our world that know us at our worst, and there are other people that we present to that only know the successful me.
Yeah.
So often this successful one is the one we take to work. This is the one that dates people. This is the one that the resume is written about. This is the one that, applies for ministry positions or that. But the problem is, and we put a lot of work into sewing that thing up, which is kind of like the fig leaves, that Adam, because all of a sudden he was revealed that he was naked. So he's got to cover that up. But the more you try to, if I put, got you, I don't know if you need a Humphrey Bear suit and got you to run around with that on all day, or maybe 18 hours of the day, I tell you what, by the end of it, you'd want to take that off.
Yeah.
Because it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But then you're only left with this person. And the problem is that often, like we marry that one and we wake up with this one after that. So everybody, sometimes the people closest to us get this person.
Yeah. Well, majority. I would say majority it says, yeah.
Yeah, get this person. And neither one of those are true. Because again, that's eating from the tree of good and evil. And God, when He saves us from those two extremes, because no longer am I living like that. I'm actually living, if you like, not from trying to have a desired impression, nor trying to hide my worst. I actually get to abide, and I live from the tree of life.
Yeah.
Which has its roots in truth, has the sap of grace running through it, and it just produces life. Which is Jesus' life in us. So our identity, in other words, is this. Everything that's true about Jesus is true about the believer.
Yeah.
And that's my identity. So when I look at Him, that's who I am.
Yeah. So good.
So not based on my behaviour, but actually
Yeah.
based on Jesus' behaviour towards us.
Yeah.
And so often I ask a person, because often religion is all about what do you do? What do you do? You need to pray. So, I can remember you have to pray an hour a day.
Yeah.
So to be more spiritual, you probably pay 2 hours a day
Yeah.
or 3 hours a day. But the problem is what happens when you run out of
Days, hours.
hours?
Yeah.
So there must be a cap to it
Yeah.
then. Or how much scripture am I supposed to memorise? How many people am I supposed to witness to? How bad a disease, can I heal? Am I only a mediocre Christian who can only pray for headache?
Yeah.
Or am I like a super Christian that can pray for, I don't know, heart cancer? I don't know what the worst disease is. Death, raise people from the dead, probably. So we have kind of this performance thing.
It's huge.
Which is, again, and we get our identity out of performance then, or some sort of pseudo-spirituality, which is actually a religious thing, which doesn't bring freedom, only brings condemnation, actually takes us further away from God, and brings this terrible thing, which is toxic to our identity, which is shame. And as soon as it's amazing when you disciple people, and you really say to them, and when people know they're loved, they'll drop their guard, and they'll be willing to talk to you and reveal to you what they're ashamed of when they feel safe enough. And if you don't shame them in that and show them that, you know what you're ashamed of, that's not even you. That's the false you. That's you without Jesus.
Yeah.
And start to lead them out of that. Now, that is a process, you know. And I often say to people, it's like, I give them the example of where we're winding down, is that you remember the pauper and the prince, that their identity was swapped around, you know. But imagine finding out that, or Oliver Twist, who thought he was an orphan, only to find out that he was actually heir to an estate and was actually a lord, not a pauper. But imagine if it was like that I'd been brought up in a different country, under a different culture, a different language, only to find out that say for you, Lou, say that you all of a sudden found out that you were actually the crown queen of France.
How'd you know?
I know. Well, prophetically.
Yeah.
You know. So at your disposal is a parliament, an army, countries all over the world, like a whole kingdom of which you are to rule. But the only problem is you can't operate that system without learning French.
Yeah.
So how's your French? Yeah, exactly. Not.
I was just bonjour.
Yeah, and often in our Christianity, we know enough of our language like a tourist.
Yes.
But we don't really cop it as an identity.
Yeah.
And to actually find out that we are that what's true about Jesus is true about us, and learning to speak that and operate like that is a journey. Now, I'm saying that for us to imagine to be able to speak a language fluently, not so that it's clunky. So even when something is said to me in English, I know that. I know what rejection feels like. I know how to respond to that. But now to hear it from a born-again point of view, when someone rejects me, and to go, oh, actually, that actually means this, and this is the way I'm meant to respond to that, takes a while.
Yes.
So it's the same as learning, okay, I need to learn to understand what's the French word for that?
Yeah.
What's the French reaction for that? And to go on the journey. And they say it takes 3 years until you actually, and for many people who probably listen who came to our country, which we kind of speak English, we speak Australian.
Yeah.
When they've come out here speaking one language, and slowly, what's interesting is those people who might have grown up speaking Filipino or Indian or all the many beautiful languages in the world, when you speak to them now, you ask them a question, what do you think in? Do you think in your home language, your native tongue, or do you speak in this new one? And you'll be amazed how many people go, well, actually, I think in English now.
Yeah, wow.
And that's what we got, because we do have the mind of Christ. We do have that, but it's learning what our new self is.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, Murray.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much. We've got a couple of other sessions that we're going to do, but thank you for that, Murray.
You're very, very welcome. Bless you.
Tune in next week.
Absolutely.